Today we are talking about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It is the 80-20 principle of endurance training. So I've adopted this principle over the course of the last couple years, specifically in Ironman training as well as running, and it's really helped me take my endurance training to the next level. So what is the 80-20 principle of endurance training? The 80-20 principle of endurance training is as follows. You do 80% of your endurance training at an aerobic heart rate, and there is a formula for that I will go ahead and walk you through in a moment. And you do the other 20% of your training in an anaerobic state, which is a high heart rate. So this method was made popular by Phil Maffetone. He's an absolute legend in the endurance space. He wrote this big book of endurance training, and this is kind of where a lot of these ideas come from. But what he's found is that by doing 80% of your training in this low heart rate zone, you're just building an amazing base of fitness that you can then build on, and you actually see gains in your endurance and your pace much quicker without getting injured and some of these other issues that kind of training in the gray zone, which is going too hard where your body can't recover fast enough from each session, but not going hard enough to really see the performance gains. So I found this method to be fantastic, and I kind of want to walk you guys through the ways that I go about my training as well as the ways that I implement this 80-20 principle moving forward. So what is the formula for the 80-20 principle? So the way that Phil Maffetone did this is he did 180 minus your age, and that's gonna give you your aerobic heart rate. So 180 minus my age, which is 31, would be 149. So when you go out running or cycling or anything, you will then find yourself sitting in that heart rate, and you don't want to go over that heart rate. So 149 would then be the upper echelon of where you want to run. And this method takes discipline, and it takes a bit of a knock to the ego, because when I first started this training, I would go out and start running, and I was learning how to nose breathe during running at the same time. So my pace would be at the 11s or the 12s, and it was very frustrating for someone that was used to running, at the 7s and 8s. But when I'd run at the 7 and 8s, my heart rate would be 165, 170, and I was never really seeing performance gains. And when I was going on these longer runs, I would just be completely trashed after them. So as I started scaling it back a little bit, I noticed that at first I was in the 11s and the 12s, and then slowly over the course of a few months, that pace started dropping into the 10s, into the 9s. And now, I'm running at 845 or so, keeping my heart rate in the 150s, which only a year ago or so, if you would have told me that, I would have been like, there's no way, because if I was in the 8s, I was in the 170s. So it's pretty incredible how you can build this base of fitness. Another amazing thing about the 80-20 principle is that if I went out and ran at 170 heart rate all the time, there's a much higher likelihood that I would get injured. And I've been doing this now for close to a year and a half, and I can tell you that when I go out and do my long runs at kind of a 150 heart rate, which is kind of a zone 2 heart rate, I come back and I feel pretty good considering, I was just out on my feet for 2 hours. So it really gives you an ability to train higher volumes, but still kind of ward off these potential injuries. So the 80-20 principle has been great in the sense that you can do more training, build a wider base of fitness, but also not risk injury as frequently as if you were just going out and pushing maximal effort each time. So let's talk about the other piece of the puzzle, which is the 20% at your anaerobic heart rate. So we've talked about the 80% at this base level fitness, 180 minus your age. Now we're doing 20%, and the formula for this is 220 minus your age to find your max heart rate. And now it's not perfect, but it's pretty close. So for me, it'd be 189. I can get my heart rate into the 190s, but 189 is a pretty good kind of general area as to where that max heart rate is. So what does this look like? This looks like sprints. This looks like assault bike sprints, Tabatas, whatever you need to do to kind of get that intensity 1 or 2 times a week. And what's great about that 20% is that this is where fitness gains are made. This is where your VO2 max improves. This is where strength and muscular resilience improves. This is where your lactate threshold improves. All these performance metrics that are intense all improve in this 20%. But because you're only training at 20% of the time, you're not setting yourself up for injury. So 80% of your training is being done where you're building this amazing base of fitness, you're tapping into fat stores, you're creating mitochondrial density, And then boom, you move into this other 20%, which is the sprint work. And now you're pushing paces, you're learning how to breathe correctly, you're learning how to recover fast from exercise. All these other amazing benefits are being made over here in that 20%. But again, you're only doing that a small percentage of the time, so you're not setting yourself up for overtraining or injury. Another benefit of the 80-20 principle is because you're doing the bulk of your training in this low heart rate zone, let's call it zone 2 training, which for me is about 150 beats per minute during my runs. It's a pretty low heart rate threshold. And so what's great about that is you're creating a bunch of mitochondrial density in your body, which we know is fantastic for longevity, fantastic for overall fitness, and just becoming a much more resilient human. Your mitochondria is kind of your energy sources in your cells. So having those dense and robust is a fantastic thing to have. The next is that zone 2 training is primarily fat burning. So what's great is when you go and do high intensity exercise, you're kind of dipping into your carbohydrate stores, your glycogen stores in your muscles. Whereas zone 2 training, primarily the energy is going to be coming from your fat stores. And there is so much fat stores on everyone's body, including even people with low body fat, that there's a lot of untapped potential there. So going out and doing these zone 2 training, you can do some of this training fasted in the morning, and you can really get the benefits of utilizing this fat for fuel instead of having to tap into these glycogen stores, which would happen at a higher heart rate. And of course, everyone, this day and age, it's always about how much cardio can I do to burn off this ice cream or whatever you're having on the weekends, whatever junk or something. It's always, how can I burn off this fat next week? And so this is great because it really targets kind of the fat stores. You're keeping the training intensity low, dipping into the fat stores, and then also you're building this wonderful base of fitness. So that's another fantastic benefit of zone 2 training at that 80-20 principle. So that was the 80-20 principle of endurance training. Again, you're doing 80% of your training at a 180 minus your age heart rate threshold, and you're doing 20% of your training at 220 minus your heart rate threshold. This is a great balance of training. Again, you build an amazing, robust base of fitness, and then you still get the performance gains of sprint work, high intensity work, and all the things that come with that. So it's a wonderful kind of robust way to build endurance over time. It doesn't come easy. Like I said, at first in the 80%, you're gonna be looking at your pace going, what the heck? This feels way too easy, and that's good. Have the discipline and let your ego dissolve a little bit and give it time, because over time your pace will increase and your endurance will get better. And then in the 20%, make sure you're going hard. Because you're doing most of your training in a low intensity, you wanna make sure that in this other 20% that you are going as hard as possible and really reaching for those performance benefits that it's brought about by sprint work and high intensity work. If you do this, I guarantee that your fitness will improve, your endurance will improve. If you'd like some further resources, I would check out the 80-20 books by Matt Fitzgerald. He has one on running. He also has one on the 80-20 triathlon. I've read both of these. They're great resources, and they come with kind of plans on how to put this into daily practice day upon day. Obviously, Phil Maffetone is the guy who kind of created this system. This is his big book of endurance training. Phil Maffetone is kind of the godfather of the 80-20 principle. This is a lot more of a dense read, but this is fantastic if you want to dig a little bit deeper into the topic. In terms of tools that you need to kind of do this training on a daily basis, I would highly recommend going and getting a heart rate strap. I have the Garmin 935 watch, and I have a heart rate strap. It's really hard for you, especially when you're just starting out, to understand kind of where your heart rate is at the time. You might feel that you are running really easy and you look down, your heart rate is in the 160s or something that's kind of in that in-between zone. So you really want to kind of dial it in, get a heart rate strap, spend the money. Polar has a good one that you can, I think, attach just to your phone through Bluetooth. And so you can get kind of some of this data without spending a ton of money. If you have a little more to buy a watch, it's nice to kind of have a watch so you have it right there on your wrist as you're out doing exercise. But it is really important to kind of have a heart rate strap so you're able to, ideally, over time, you want to kind of know what zone you're in just by feel, but that doesn't come easy. I'm still working on that, about 2 years into this. So I would recommend starting out with a heart rate strap and kind of learning what your body feels like in these zones so so that you have a better understanding of that perceived effort later on. And so hopefully at some point we can all take the heart rate straps off and just get back to doing what feels right at that perceived effort. But we want to build fitness, so this is how we're doing it with the 80-20 principle. So thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you learned a good amount. I hope you put this into practice. Again, I've found some amazing benefits, and I'm still working on fitness, but my pace and my endurance is improving using these methods. So if you have any comments, go ahead and throw them down below. I respond to each and every comment and hope to send you any kind of resources that you're looking for. So thanks again for coming along. My name's Justin Peters. Have a great day.